A very good morning, Sila Mazatla Mahle, Sabang, Tin Katakwana, Silom Plex, and it's a beautiful Tuesday morning, 23rd of July 2024. It was a long weekend, say Pelile, say Shaile, Bongabant Babilem 17 Lampla. Thank you for joining us, Silom Plex, and Mguni. How do you do this morning?
Why do you say that with, it sounds like, Utsi, yeah, like, as long
Yeah,
as you're
Sekwa Pelele, yeah, Sangas Kona Namul.
Sekwa Pelele,
Sekwa Pelele, yeah.
Yeah, but we just hope that everyone enjoyed the holiday because it's an important holiday. I think we did highlight the significance of the holiday for the country. We really appreciate the momentous activities and everything that happened and unfolded during King Sopuza the second reign as the king. We also saw, witnessed our independence as a country under his reign. One of the things that always gets highlighted during that particular holiday. But a very good morning to you as well, Tombeni.
I'm good.
I think
I'm
as you're greeting the viewers at home, highlighting that it's the 23rd of July, it's just so real. It's crazy. I can't believe it.
Time flies.
How
Only
quickly.
just a few months away from 2025.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us, Lomhle Ekseni. A lot to talk about. Lomuhla stabesine baga isikom stabesikhuluma nge-Data Protection Act yemnyaka wa 2022. It's important ukuthi tingapane tigcine imininingwane yamakhasimende iphephile kude ingatowela etandleni temathabela ngodi. Data Protection Act yemnyaka wa 2022 yagcizelela ngebumcoka bekugcina imininingwane yamakhasimende. We will be joined by Isicom's Data Protection Officer Lindokuhle Sibanze. Kudokhuluma nje ngawo lo mthetho ukuthi who needs to register and why. Dokumela ukuthi libandla ke Isicom lamemetela ukuthi liyavula kusukela nakucala inyanga ya March kutawuphetha nakuphela inyanga ya September ukuthi tonke tinkapani letinemininingwane yamakhasimende tibe setiregistrile nakuphela 30 September. Kungmanje nje over 30 companies have registered. We want to talk to Lindo about fines and penalties and the processing of personal information and how it should be collected and kept. We'll also be joined by Assistant Commissioner in the Fraud Department, Emaphoyiseni, Mr. Nicholas Jele, to raise awareness on cybercrime, particularly mobile wallet scams. The police, Emabang, and mobile networks and other stakeholders held a meeting to come up with strategies to curb mobile wallet scams. Scams lavamile kulamalanga abantu abaningi babayaskemeka ngamo money imali kokuthi abathumele imali letithile sifuna kuva ukuthi ahambe afika apha investigations amaphoyisa kutholakala leto dikila mkhuba leto. Stay with us.
Yeah, really excited to listen to that one. Another one that we have today, maybe before I start there, let me just highlight that it has been 8 months since Sabuya Eswatini, and 8 months is such a long time, and it calls for us to perhaps look back at what was really said there, and just the progress that we have made. But also, it has been exactly 165 days since His Majesty made his speech from the throne. That was, of course, during the opening of the first session, rather, of the opening of the Parliament. We want to dive deep into some of the strides that Eswatini has since made since His Majesty King Mswati III's pivotal directives. This is during the Sibaya in November 2023, as well, whereby, by the way, His Majesty highlighted poverty, and Gweswela as a burning issue for our nation, and issued the urgent Nkwe command for swift action. And following that, Prime Minister Russell Dlamini launched the Nkwe initiative, inspired by the King's call for urgency and efficiency. In addition, we also want to reflect on the progress made since His Majesty's influential speech from the throne on February 9, 2024. This speech, which set the agenda for our national development, aligning closely with global frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement, and resonating with our National Development Plan, the United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework. To help us unpack all of these, we will be joined by economist Sanele Sibia just to explore the tangible progress seen since the Nkwe Directive, the implementation of economic policies, and the overall impact on governance, justice, peace, security, and natural resource management. You will remember, I think, Tombeni, one of the biggest things that people ought to remember is that poverty and corruption were amongst the biggest conversations, particularly at the Sivaya. And in summary, when the king made his speech, going forward, we want a government of accountability. And that's going to be an interesting nugget that we're going to explore with Sane. And I think, maybe a moment to applaud Eswatini TV and what they have done as well. Just, taking from the Ngwe directive. We have a program called Asake Gwetu. And just looking at the fact that in the government abe accountable. Look at what that particular program does, as well as what we do on the show, and just assessing that progress. I think it's beautiful, the steps that the whole country is taking, and just, making sure so everybody's playing their role. The media is playing their role, but most importantly, let us assess the work that is being done, because what then becomes ultimate is the work itself that is being done. We'll talk about it 7:30 this very morning. Very good morning to you once again. My name is Fiso Ngumala and I'm with Lungelele Makakula.
All right, sitting headlines on the Times of Eswatini, Lomuhla. Over 500 at factory, 60 hired and 200 needed. Those are the leading headlines. Cops, 250 residents guard killed woman's corpse overnight. Police lack advanced lighting system for processing crime scenes at night. 21-year-old woman killed allegedly by boyfriend. A 19-year-old and body was dumped in a ditch. In other news, AG's office gets major AU appointment. Woman hiker slips, falls to her death, and minister questions lawyers' authority.
Yeah. Moving on to sports headlines in the Times of Eswatini. Messi has been honored after Copa America win. That is a story coming from the international front. When we come closer to home in South Africa, we see Chiefs monitoring birds. Leon Manyisa, Wesihlangu and Capital City Giants midfielder Leon Manyisa is set to receive a major lifeline if reports surrounding his future are anything to go by. Nasifika ke lakha sesibuyile ke nyalo sibuka Nobuhle who nets over 100,000 emalangeni. Lobamba born. Okay, yeah, that's Nobuhle netting over 100,000 emalangeni.
Moving on to the Eswatini Observer, your leading headlines. Mashilana's traditional wedding, that is a picture of him and his wife Kuku during their traditional ceremony at Malinda over the weekend. In other news, it was a horrific long weekend. Suspects drink driver rams into 4 pedestrians, 2 killed on the spot and 2 others fighting for their lives in hospitals, and a woman drowned tragically as she slipped into river. Kuletinyele Thamba Imbili Nation choosing Indilinga over Umkulu. You can read more on page 3. And police alleged to have raided Mbonga's home.
Eswatini Observer this Tuesday morning. The biggest story there, it will be a fierce battle as over 14 BOGs have been nominated for the 7 PLE ex-course seats. Nzabagelena that looks into the nomination process that closed last Wednesday. Vetting exercise is to follow, and PLE will go to the polls on August 10th. Some of the faces there that will be going in as the list of nominees include Mark Carmichael, Polycarp Dlamini, Victor Rodriguez, Charles Matsebula, Spusiso Ngumalo, Sikelo Mkonda, and a couple other more. MTN Kemani donates 70,000 Emalangeni medical supplies as well as food parcels. In Zabagelena, that unfolded in Mangayane folk who will be having a lasting memory about cyclists even when one is riding alone. Kaizer Chiefs monitoring Manyisa. Again, we see this story where Bobby Motaung's visit and his friendship with Mbabane Swallows recently might start bearing fruits.
Moving on to the Eswatini Daily News, your leading headlines. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Polile Shakantu, won many hearts during the 45th ordinary session of the Executive Council in Accra, Ghana. The charismatic minister emphasized the importance of this engagement for inclusive economic development, climate change action, health and social development. Kuletinye lethamba imbili, over 7,000 attendees enjoy Mbiveni biggest braai, and a traffic accident claims 2 lives at Kwaluseni.
The leading sports headlines: Eswatini Daily News, Birds, Gadlela impresses TX Galaxy in 2-all draw. Babani Swallows forward was a menace in the 2-all draw, and Galaxy have since inquired and requested to assess him. Aja Jive for Bull is another leading story there. Orlando Pirates that has unveiled their new jersey.
All right, and that's it for newspaper headlines. It's 10 minutes after 6. We'll go for an ad break. Now, so we are starting the Eswatini.
I'm a very, 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 very happy customer.
I know.
Imali ebhizinisi ayidlika wayidla udabula phasi.
Hayi ngimsebenzi yethu lesendako la ekhaya njengoba niyibona limihle nakangaka.
Ngiyagolosha, which is crocheting.
Ngiyakhicita ke noko kakhulu emsebenzini wethu ikhumba.
Ngenda kwegaba emacici nokwegaba entsangeni.
Ngilungisa emagedlela. Hello, how are you? We are selling peanuts at 5. Thank you so much. Umdala kubusi. Find the strat, babe.
Ngosihlenhla siphinze sinamukele ehlelweni solonibukela yona ikusile breakfast show uhlelo lwanga lwesibili ekuseni nathi ke tindzabade siswati ake sitithabele ingwenyama ethi libandla la Jesu Kristu even leSwatini linemsebenzi lomkhulu ekuqinisekisa ukuthi umbono wenkosi somhlolo uyagcineka futhi ke uchubekelana setukulwaneni letitako ingwenyama beyiphefumula emthandazweni wesidlo sasekuseni wekukhumbula umbono wenkosi somhlolo wekuqala somhlolo Festival of Prayer breakfast ehotela le Mountain View eMbabane ingwenyama beyimelelwe ngumvana Nkosi David.
Emakhasi embhalo welive ayaqaqisa ukuthi amakhosi adlala inzima lenkulu ekuboneni ukuthi umbono wenkosi somhlolo uyahlonishwa futhi uyakhunjulwa ngaso sonke isikhathi. Umnyaka beku-1836 ngesikhathi inkosi somhlolo iba nalombono lo wayala eMaswati ukuthi akhethe umculo aphindze awudle. Nga-1840 esihlalweni sebukhosi kwabekwa inkosi Mswati wesibili yawuthatha yahamba ngawo lo mbono ngangobe nga-1844 yakhipha emadvodza lamabili lekwakubo Majuba Mdzebele naMkonkoni Kunene kuthi ayowulanza umculo eNingizimu Afrika nembala ahamba abuya nawo. Kwathi nga-1921 inkosi Sobhuza wesibili liyagcina seyiholela live enkhululekweni yabekwa esihlalweni sebukhosi nayo yagijima ngawo lo mbono kwaba nguleso nakuyo ingwenyama Mswati wesithathu lekwathuma ibekwa esihlalweni sebukhosi nga-1986 yahamba etinyathelweni temakhosi ayitolo. Ingwenyama lebeyimelelwe ngumvana Nkosi David ithi libandla la Jesu Kristu lapha eveni linensayeya lenkulu yaqinisekisa ukuthi lo mbono wenkosi somhlolo awulahlekelwa ingcikithi yawo esitukulwaneni samanje nasetukulwaneni letawulandzela. Ingwenyama ithi live yalimbonge uNkulunkulu lengaphandle kwakhe ngabe selakhukhulwana timo.
This is a vision that the church in Eswatini must continue to run with and ensure is sustained for generations to come. We are grateful to Almighty God that we are gathered here in unity on this peaceful land, and our hearts resonate with gratitude for the blessings bestowed upon our beloved nation of Eswatini. Our strength lies in our unity and faith in God. We acknowledge that it is God who has helped and sustained us, and without him, challenges and life storms would have swept us. The victories we celebrate have all been by the grace and wisdom that God has given us, and the legacy of our forefathers that we have upheld.
Ndvunankulu umhlonishwa Russell Dlamini lobekamelelwe indvuna yelitiko letasekhaya umfana Nkosi Lindiwe uthi umse emakhosi ngekugcina wona umbono wenkosi Somhlolo.
Somhlolo wathi asithathe nalo umculo. Indilinga sivile ngayo bayichaza ke nje uthi de Somhlolo asithathele umculo bekunene. Sibona ke makhosi solo ayawulandzela lo mculo njengoba sesifikile enkosini eMswati wesithathu. Siyayibona etata inkonzo, siyayibona ethandaza stadium Good Friday. Siyayibona livela kangona livela lisekhululekile ngokuthandaza. Nabanye amave nawubita igama la Jesu noma uphethe iBhayibheli lamanye amave neBhayibheli ayivunyelwa ukuthi ingene ngekhansi. So thina kangona sela lenhlanhla ukuthi siyakhona ukuthandaza ngoNkulunkulu ngaphandle kwekwesaba, ngaphandle kwekwendani. Noma ufuna kenza abeni awuthandaza khona kude nje nawe umswati uyakhona nenkululeko yekuthandaza lokho ke kuvunywa ngilabo abaphethe lelive. Amen.
Kulo mcimbi igcizelelo indzaba ukuthi eMaswati angasikhohlwa siprofetho lesethelwe ngumfundisi Brian Jefferson Mosley waseMelika lo efika kuleli nga1983 nemlayodo lothi uNkulunkulu uthi live leSwatini lipulpeti elivekati leAfrika. Ikhulumi tifake ekhatsi umfundisi Dr. Absalom Muntu Dlamini lo cathatele umbuthano ngemlandvo wembono wenkosi Somhlolo na Dr. Joy Ndwandwe lofundzise ngelichaza ledlalwa ngemakhosi ekuboneni ukuthi lo mbono uyagcineka. Kube khona nelibandla lelikhulumise tihloko letibethambelana nekuthi eMaswati solo ahamba ngawo yini umgomo walombono nekuthi uma ngabe khona lapho isala khona isala kuphi nekuthi itinyathelo tini letingathathwa kuqinisekisa ukuthi live liyaqhubeka nekufukamela. Kushumayele Dr. Samuel Dlamini lohole umthandazo wekuvusetela ubudlelwane benkosi Jesu Kristu nelive leSwatini. Wathi Jesu ufuna kubusa abe nesihlalo aphindze enabe kuleli njengoba emazulu alikhethile live leSwatini. Uvete ukuthi lokutawenda ukuthi live libe yipulpete yeAfrika kutawuba ukuthi licaphelisise ukuthi liyamlalela uNkulunkulu bese nekulunga kwakhe uNkulunkulu kuyabusa eveni nako konke lokuphathelene nalo. Kube khona ke nembono lothi kude umculo udliwe kuleli njengoba asho uNkulunkulu emaBhayibheli akafakwe etikolweni abe khona nasetinkundleni nasembuthweni yakuleli nakiwo ke ematiko ahulumende kubala lokumbalwa ukuthi te uma sewuphelile umcimbi kosala sithombe lesithi uNkulunkulu solo ume emavini akhe ukuthi ufuna kusebenzisa live leSwatini kukhomba emandla nemangaliso wakhe aphilise iAfrika yonke nemhlaba wonke jikelele asebenzisa lona live. Lebika kwethu indzabeni ngisandile emakhanya bikana Zweli Masuku eMbabane.
Indvuna yeti-70 umhlonishwa Phila Buthelezi ithi ti-70 yatiwiyekela umkhuba wekushisa impahla uma ngabe kukhona lapho tingaboni ngasolinye khona nemcashi wato. Indvuna beyikhuluma enkundleni yaseMhlume ngesikhathi kunemhlangano wentfutfuko kule nkundla.
Libandla lenkundla yaseMhlume leliholwa ngumhlonishwa Sifiso Magagula lihlangene nesive salenkundla kutawukhuluma kabanti ngetikhwama tentuthuko kanye naleminye imisebenti lendiwa ngilenkhundla ngenhloso yekusita sive saseMhlume. Lo mcimbi ungenelwe na indvuna yeti-70 umhlonishwa Phila Buthelezi lekhuthathe ti-70 kutsi tingayilimati impahla uma ngabe tinetikhalo kepha ke tukhambise embili khulumisana nebacashi.
Lasi nje tiko la labor ema-scholarships lamanengi lesi-guaranteed ngawona sinika abafundi ngilawa lanika abantu emakhono laba kubova team nje siyayisetamela ukuthi 100% naba-applyile ba-qualifya bayawathola because uyathi lo sinakatrainekile lo mfundzi nakaphuma utawukhona kutephilisa angikacashwa ngumuntu. Siyakhuthaza njalo ukuthi nani nilatshaneni sengwenyama singabuki sonke kucashwa asibuke nakokutisebenta ukuze sikhone kuphila. Nathi-ke lesiwutholile umusa saba semisebentini. Sine sithunywe kuthanyela itiko lato kusebenti nenhlalakahle yato. Siyathi ukuthi nakusetshenzwa akuhlali kumnanzi wonke malanga. Kodwa nje-ke kuyayibe sesekuba buhlungu nawutawuthi nakuvumelana ukhanza sekonakele lokhu lesibuke ukuthi sitawuphila ngako sonke. So ukhanza sekushele lesicasho lokusebenza sekushele imishini lesisebenza ngayo. Sithi njamane sikwekhude asikukhuthati ngoba uyakwenda wena ukwendiswe injabulo eliningi kwekuthi sonke senda nawo. Kodwa kukhona labantu benkosi laba bese balahlekelwa imisebenzi. Sisalume sathi indzabadako kudlalisana kahle asikugweme kokuthi bese sesona lokhu lesihlangene ekuseni sitakusebenza. Kungaba namasimo emoba, kungaba imishini, kungaba ngamahhovisi. Indzaba yokuthi bese ibuye etandleni la kucashene khona sizamane siye khude ingaqhubeki sikhuthate ukuthi kuhlaliswane phansi.
Inkundla yasemhlume ingulenye yetinkundla letitawuzuza emsebentini wemandi lechubekako enkundleni yakalomahasha.
Mhlume inkundla ukuthinzeka emaphiveni ngila vele endibe kude mbamba lamandi kanti labantu bacela nibayona lo mfula bese bafile etingwenya lokana loka bathi bayeme wokhe manje lapha emfuleni badlwe etingwenya but nyalo sesijabule kakhulu njengale project ukuthi seyitawusitha lesive lesilapha emaphiveni.
Kulomnyaka timali wa 2024-2025 inkundla ngayinye iphakelwe imali letigidzi letimbili nengcenye 2.8 million emalangeni esikhwameni sekuthuthukisa tifundza. Umbiko ohlanganiswe ngeLinkedIn Gule nginabheka imazibuko sisemhlume.
Ngemetamo yokuthile Eswatini linikete ivakashi tinvo letahlukene indvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha letindzaba temvelo umhlonishwa Jane Mkhonda Simelane uvakashele indzawo lenemigetse kaphunga. Lemigetse kuthiwa beyisebenziswa abantu bakadzeni kanti futhi ke yadlala indzima lenkulu ngetikhatsi tetimbi kadzeni. Inhloso yalo livakasho lwendvuna ukuthi kuyawubukiswana ukuthi lendzawo ngentiwa njani ukuthi ke ibe semthethweni futhi ikhange tivakashi lokutawufeza umgomo welitiko ekutheni tivakashi tijabulele tinvo letahlukene futhi tiphindze tihlale emalanga lamanyenti lapha eveni. Lalonxusele live leNgilandi kuleli Simon Boyden uthi hulumende wakhe ufake imali lenganga 350 billion US dollars esikhwameni sekusita emave emhlaba lesengephansi kwamhlabuhlangene. Boyden uthi la kangwane lizuza kakhulu etinhlelweni letahlukene ngekusebenzisana namhlabuhlangene. Boyden uthi ube ingcenye yetinhlelo letahlukene kuleli letihlomise abantu labasha nabomake lokuyinto lesenhlitiyweni yakhe. Boyden abekhulumisana nalomsakato ngemsebenzi lehhovisi lakhe leliyendile kuleli.
Saphuma ehhovisini lalonxusele leNgilandi kuleli Simon Boyden sowucedze iminyaka lemithathu kuleli kanti-ke sowusebente iminyaka lengu-27 kuleti tekudlelana nalamanye emave. Boyden nakakhulumisana-ke nalo msakato wachaza ngetinhlelo letente umehluko ezifeni zamaSwati uthi-ke letinhlelo tifaka ekhatsi kwakhiwa kwabhukwana lokhuluma ngetekuphila kwengcondvo i-mental health.
A lot of development assistance does come to the country but not directly through my office. As far as the individual micro projects are concerned, we've run a number of over the last 3 years. We try and
Boyden uthi lehhovisi lakhe belisebenzisana netinhlangano letitimele letenta umehluko event letfaka ekhatsi leto letivikela tiphindze tisekele bantfu labasha kuti bakhone kutimela. Uthi-ke lokusebenzisana naletinhlangano kube nemphumela lomuhle ngobe kuvulwe indzawo lapho inhlangano yokwakha indvodza itawukhona kwenabisa lusito lwebantfu labasha kutekuhloba netekukhula.
One of the things I've been most pleased about in the last 12 months has been a project with 3 organizations who cooperated to produce a mental health booklet.
Boyden uthi-ke nekuvulwa kwendzawo yekucwaninga nekuvikela imvelo lesembuluzi kube dvutane kakhulu nenhlitiyo yakhe ngobe le ndzawo itawusebenziswa kuthi-ke bantfu bakhone kucwaninga nalabo labachamuka ngephandle kwelive. Boyden uthi lebekakutsandza kakhulu ukuthi akhone kuniketa bantfu litfuba lekukhuluma ikakhulu labo labasalela ngephandle etintfweni letinyenti. Emalangeni lambalwa lendlulile, Boyden ube nelitfuba lekuvalelisa emakhosini kanye nanguvunankulu welive. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni na Junior Adagwa ezulwini.
Inkampani yahulumende iRoyal Eswatini National Airway Corporation seyicalile kubuka indlela tekwengeta emave lapho indiza yelive iEswatini Air ingathutha abantu khona kulesifundza lesendansi neAfrika. Ngekusho kwaGetane World Michael lomeleleke umphathi wale nkampani, sifiso sayo ukuthi le ndiza igcine ethwala iphindze ichumanise tivakashi ye-East Africa kanye nase-Southern Africa. World Michael bekakhuluma uma achaza ngetinhlelo tekwengeta tindzawo indiza yelive letawundiza kuyo iEswatini Air.
Indiza yelive Eswatini Air kungumanje itfutsa sive etindzaweni letine, lokhu kuseThekwini, Cape Town, Harare kanye naseJozi. Inkampani yahulumende iRenac seyicale kuhlangana nalabo labatsintsekako kutekundiza kutsi live lengete tindzawo ema-destinations. Ngekusho kwemcondzisi we-commercial Getane World Michael lomelele umphatsi wale nkampani utsi-ke umgomo wale ndiza kutsi ikhulise kuchumana kwelive kutekundiza kanye-ke nemhlaba. World Michael utsi-ke sebacalile kubuka kutsi litfuba lekutfutsa tivakashi letisuka e-East Africa batimikisa esifundeni lesendansi ne-Afrika bangalisebentisa kanjani.
We also believe we can bring value to the Eswatini economy if we connect the East African tourist circuit to the Southern African tourist circuit.
World Michael uthi masinyane batewetfula ezweni umphumela walokwengeta emave lapho-ke live litawundizela khona. World Michael uthi-ke kwenta konke loku kutawudzinga imali. Uthi-ke kudzingeka cishe iminyaka lesihlanu kutsi-ke le nkampani ikhone kutfola tindzawo tekundiza pheceleti ema-routes. Uthi umgomo wale nkampani kutsi ibe ngilehamba embili emhlabeni kepha-ke ngendlela lephephile.
To improve the investment desirability of Eswatini.
Kwengeta kwaletindzawo lapho indiza yelive Eswatini itawundizela khona kutabe kusho ukuthi nembala loluhlangothi lwetekundiza lungawufukula umnotfo welive lokungumgomo lomkhulu wale nkampani. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni ngisembabane.
Sivele singenele umcimbi we-Imbevian Biggest Prize kulomnyaka silinganiselwa etinkhulungwaneni letisikhombisa. Kanti ngekusho kwasihlalo wenhlangano yePhilani Maswati Lutfo Dlamini uthi imali lecokelelwe kulomsebenzi utawucedzela ke likhale abantu labadzala kumanjonga lodzinga imali lenganga 1 million emalangeni. Dlamini bekakhuluma emhlanganweni nevetindzaba lapho bekachaza ukuthi lo msebenzi uhambe njani.
Umcimbi we-Imbevian Biggest Prize lobubanjwe ngempelasonto ukhange bantfu labanyenti nakucatsaniswa naleminye iminyaka. Ngekusho kwasihlalo wenhlangano yePhilani Maswati Lutfo Dlamini, lo mcimbi ube netinhlelo letihluke kakhulu kunalokujwayelekile.
Umsebenzi uhambe kahle kude lesive kuthulimele kushayweni sekugicika imoto uNkulunkulu uchubekile nje wasibusisa. The Biggest Prize 8th edition inemlando lomuhle ukuthi lamaswati nalokuthi inombolo singakeva kahle but estimate abo 5-6-7,000 laba kwathu estimator sisetawubuka ngoba nabo treasurer ngikhani batawu hamba basibhangele lo lesikuthola lesitawubona khona sibebanganani bantu, but we believe there were more than ever bake baba khona. Nabangathi 7 or 8,000 ngacishe ngibavumela. Na silapha sivakashelwe ngu-former head of state waseBotswana, another first ukuthi umholi lebeka umholi welive akubone kufanele kuthatha uDimbanzakanya nathi. And kwesithathu sibe nethuba leku-celebrate i-birthday yalomnye mkhulu lona 113 weminyaka. Now abelapha ku-Biggest Prize. Ahamba nebafati bakhe lababili, lomunye una 67 lomunye una 96, so uyabona lokuthi awulomndeni busisekile. So i-Biggest Prize ithi ababuye ndawonye bobathathu sibashayile tandla, and we are very happy lokuthi size sibalethe la banebantwana laba banakekelako besifuna nje lokukhombisa kubonga nakulabantwana ukuthi bantu nasebakule age leya babese baba ngumthwalo okuphilana. Laba ngilabantwana labasebomkhulu bethu labasitawu sivuka nabo.
Lisekela la meya wakaManzini Wesley Dlamini ubonge bonke lababambisene kuthi-ke lo msebenzi ube impumelelo.
From what we've actually witnessed on the 2 days la bekhona ngile interest lenye lesebayivetile lengaba khona ukuthi the event can only grow from now ibe bigger than what we actually witnessed. So I believe singimanzini thina sibonga kakhulu sibonga Philani Maswati, and we can only invest more as a city sifake isandla moving forward as far as the event is concerned.
Leli khaya lelakhiwako labogogo kuMantshonga selishoda ngekuthi-ke salelifakwa tinfo letimbalwa kude liphele ngcono. Itindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni na Junior Adakwa Kamanzini.
Kutemidlalo inhlangano yemidlalo we-Q Sports kuleli beyidlalisa imidlalo yawo ema-National Championships lebeyidlalelwa eMalkens. Kanti le midlalo beyihlukanise ngetigaba lapho bekunema-Masters, kune-Open, kuneyaboma-ke bantfwana kanye-ke naleyo yalabakhubatekile. Nqobile Dlamini uhambe embili emidlalweni yaboma-ke, kanti-ke kuleyo yabantfwana Simakhelwe Magagula uhambe embili. Lebe bathi-ke bajabule kakhulu ngekuhamba embili. Kanti-ke kulabakhubatekile kube nguMandla Nkosi Mabasa ngaphansi kwe-Open kanye ne-Masters ayikapheli le midlalo lapho sekusele khona labasiphohlongo labatawudlala ngelilanga lelitawumenyetelwa. Lisekela lamengameli wenhlangano lengameli omdlalo webasketball kuleli iphumelele Motsa uthi bayinhlangano bajabula ngendlela tikolo lichudzelane ngayo natidlala imidlalo ema-National Championships, njengoba ke lokho kutawukwenta ukuthi kuphakame izinga lekudlala lomdlalo kuto tonke tigaba. Motsa bekhuluma uma kuchubeka imidlalo yetikolo aleyatiwa ngele-Schools Basketball National Championships yeminyaka wa 2024, umdlalo ke lebeyibanjelwe esikolweni eUsuthu eMhlambanyathi. Sitaphetsa kanjalo tindzaba tesiswati sitawuchubeka nalo hlelo masibuye emakethe.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi
aba-researche bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusemndeni.
Renewal of TV licenses for 2024 is now open. Here is a quick reminder. A viewer's TV license costs 180 emalangeni per device. Other accessories such as decoders and set-top box cost 50 emalangeni per device. For traders and repairers, TV license costs 300 emalangeni per business area. And now, to pay your TV license, use these following methods. You can use MTN Mobile Money with the number 76222000 or dial *007 *3 *7#, or you can use Eswatini Imali. And you can pay our TV license at any post office in the country. Another option is you can use any Nedbank branch using our TV license account number 1199004337. Don't forget, when paying for your viewer's TV license, reference with your PIN at all times. And when paying for a retailer TV license, reference with your TIN at all times. For more information, call us on 7802-4543 or 34050163 or 34020879. And you can send us a WhatsApp message on 762222000.
Welcome back. Siyakuvuselana nothando kuzivulela haba sivudile ukuthi sizabe sikhulumisana naLindo Kuhle Sibanze, who's the Data Protection Officer at Eskom. Sifuna ukukhuluma kabanti nge-Data Protection Act ku-register kwendinkampani, particularly those that process i-data yamakhasimende. It's important ukuthi le tinkampani leti tigcine imininingwane yamakhasimende ayo in secret kude kuvikela amathabela ngodwa ukuthi asebenzise leyo information le. She joins me now kude sikhulumisa kabanti ngayo registration ukuthi how many companies have registered, also noting ukuthi i-deadline is on 30th of September this year. Very good morning. Thank you for joining us Nomhla Ekuseni Ilindo. Kuzivetela nje sithome ukuthi why is it important ukuthi companies should adhere and register nayo Eswatini Data Protection Authority?
Thank you so much. So the Data Protection Act Section 5 mandates Eswatini Data Protection Authority to maintain a register of all data controllers and data processors. So it's important that all organizations that process or collect personal information register with us because it's in the Act. So the organization can register on our website. So we have an online portal, which is the www.edpa.org.nz.
Yeah, so the deadline, as I mentioned, is on the 30th of September this year. How many companies are registered thus far?
Okay, first I would like to thank most of the organizations because we have seen an increase in the registration, so which demonstrates their first step to compliance. So we have 156 organizations that have signed up to register. Basically, sign up means that they have credentials to access our portal for registration. And then out of those 156, we do have 84 organizations that have completed their registration, and we've already issued 33 certificates to organizations that have completed their registration as well. So tomorrow we are going to be issuing 30 more registration certificates to organizations that have completed their registration process.
Okay, as you did highlight that the Act dictates that logo register is mandatory. What then happens after the 30th of September? Are there any penalties?
Okay, so it is a mandatory requirement that all organizations register. So if organization, per the section 46 of the Act, if they don't register by the 30th of September, it will be deemed illegal to process personal information without the registration. And then the Act do have penalties, which includes that the penalties in the Act is 2% of your annual turnover, as well as up to 100 million.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's Section 9 of the Act also dictates that processing of personal information, also talks about processing of personal information. How should it be collected and how should it be kept?
Okay. Section 9 of the Act states that organizations should store the personal information in a lockable cabinet as well as in an electronic format. So the Act also provides that the organization should at least have one lawful basis for processing personal information. So the lawful basis include that there should be explicit consent when you collect personal information from an individual. There should be, because of reasons of fulfilling illegal obligations. So if you are trying to comply with the legal act, and then there is a legitimate interest of the data controller, legitimate interest of the data subject, as well as public interest as well.
All right, let's go for an ad break. Sabiya khona manje sifuna kulungisa something.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Hey you! Yes, you. Have you paid your TV license?
Did you know that by paying for your TV license fees, you will be complying with the laws that govern television possession, in particularly the Swaziland Television Authority Act of 1983 and its regulations? It is a legal obligation.
Paying for your TV license can have a positive spin-off, as the money collected from TV license fees goes a long way in assisting Eswatini Television Authority procure appealing and relevant content to broadcast on the channel.
So now, these fees also increase purchasing of local content from independent producers, which helps ensure that the arts and film industry in the country is well supported thus far, ensures the creation of jobs for eMaswati. The payment of TV license fees goes a really long way in such endeavors as well as nation building.
A TV license costs 180 emalangeni per year per device, and for other accessories such as a decoder or njinja, it costs 50 emalangeni per device per year.
By paying for your TV license,
you will be doing the right thing.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience in the kingdom.
Alright, welcome back. Sixosa kakhulu ngaloko kuphazamiseka. She was just explaining Lindo kuhlela nako ukuthi seeing ukuthi the deadline for companies and organizations to register with the data protection authorities on the 30th of September this year. What then happens? After the 30th of September?
So if an organization decides that they're not going to register, so per the Section 46 of the Act, it says that organizations are supposed to process personal information only if they register with us. So if they don't register, it means that they are processing personal information illegally.
Okay, so surely you've had workshops, trainings, and interactions with some of these organizations and companies. Do they understand their role and implications of the Data Protection Act?
Yes, most organizations do understand their role per the Data Protection Act. Most of them is because they are group-oriented organizations, so they are based in SA, some of them, which means that they were already complying with the POPIA Act. So we are also having engagement. So on a weekly basis, we do have engagements with our organization to try and sensitize the act so that they know more on their obligations.
Okay, so how long is this process of registering? Because, you know, as Black people with deadlines, we want to do everything last minute. How long does it take?
It's not a long process, so you just go on our online portal and then you have to sign up first, and then you'll be able to access our online registration forms. And then after, you just have to provide information on who you are, basically your organization details, and then you provide who is your data protection officer and what kind of information do you collect. Are you collecting names of people? Are you collecting ID numbers? And then the different categories of information that you collect, which means that are you collecting from your employees? Are you collecting from your client, as well as are you collecting information from children? And then you also have to provide, do you also transfer information outside of Eswatini? And then what security measures have you put in place to ensure that this information doesn't go through a data breach?
Okay, so tomorrow you're awarding some of these companies with certificates. Last about Kusile, tell us more about that.
Yes, so tomorrow we are going to have an event at Mountain View where we're going to have a public ceremony of handover of certificates. So we do have 30 organizations that have that are going to be issued the certificate, which includes ANPF, we have MTN, like it's mostly the big companies as well.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Remind us what's the website to log on into?
So it's www.edpa.org.az.
All right, thank you so much, Mugeli. There you have it. Data Protection Authority, bafuna ukuthi tinkampani organizations that handle private information or personal information emakhasimende ukuthi to register with the authority before 30th September. Isikhomgetabe award certificates to 30 companies that have complied nesicelo saka Eskom. Sabahlala temangesana sibuya sizabe sikhulumisana Nicholas Jele sikhuluma kabanti ngema mobile wallet scams.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze. Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusemndeni.
Renewal of TV licenses for 2024 is now open. Here is a quick reminder. A viewer's TV license costs 180 emalangeni per device. Other accessories such as decoders and set-top box cost 50 emalangeni per device. For traders and repairers, TV license costs 300 emalangeni per business area. And now, to pay your TV license, use these following methods. You can use MTN Mobile Money with the number 76222000 or dial *007 *3 *7 hash. Or you can use Eswatini Imali. And you can pay our TV license at any post office in the country. Another option is you can use any NetBank branch using our TV license account number 119900430037. Don't forget, when paying for your viewer's TV license, reference with your PIN at all times. And when paying for a retailer TV license, reference with your TIN at all times. For more information, call us on 7802-4543 or 34050163 or 34020879. And you can send us a WhatsApp message on 762222000.
Sela nawo lasanza ukuzivulela sifuna ukukhuluma ngabantu ngema-mobile wallet scams yindzaba lenkulu kade ke lana nama-cases solayachubeka ayanza ngokusho kwawo emaphoyisa sinaba beNicholas Jelelo suka ehlangothini lwaka-fraud emaphoyiseni sifuna ukuva ukuthi ngabe metamoyini labayendako ngokusebenzisana nama-stakeholders kuzama ukuthola lama-culprits lawo babetshela sekuvusele siyawabona ama-reports ukuthi solo bakhona labo labagangako labashayela abantu particularly abantu labadzala babaluthe bathi abakhokheta imali bo mobile money bo imali nabo e-wallet lizinga lalama cases labikwako nje emaphoyiseni lenganani and futhi ama-investigations enu ansatha anibekephi.
Sibonge kakhulu dzadzewethu sivusele kiso sive seMaswati. Umuntu angasho ukuthi vele lolu hlobo lolwecala luya ngokudlondlobala ekakhulukati kusolo kusukela umnyaka nje luyaphakama kakhulu vele. Kuba abantu labadzala labavama kushayelwa tincingo especially those who are retired lokwatiwa ukuthi khona imali abanato bese sebayatshelwa ukuthi oh i-account yakho has been compromised ngaleso sizathu sicela ukuthi sikuside bangashaya basho bathi sishaya emaphoyiseni akacyber kulesinye isikhathi balisebenzisa ligama lemaphoyisa kabi lokulicala nako lesasibeke bale nje sikulicala nako kuyimpersonal phoyisa udende liphoyisa ungesilo vele kulicala leli punishable emthethweni sisasibacwayisa abantu kuloko basi bangabashayela ke babatshele ukuthi okay utawushayelwa umuntu wasebhange bese vele subsequently noma ke masinyane nje soshayelwa ngumuntu wasebhange lo purporter noma lo bukeka sengathi wasebhange atitshele so ngimile ngimanager le account yakho i-account yakho has been compromised noma ke has been hacked uyati lokuthi angaze akhulume lenkulumo leyo ingqondo yakho will stop thinking vele so uthatha orders nama instructions lakakuniketa wona as is awusaquestioni lutho ngoba wathi ukuthi imali yakho seyisengodini babe sebakutshela ukuthi okay nangabe unayo i-bank app yakho ngena kiyo bakunike ama instructions kangangokuba ungaze uhambise imali khona lapho ungathambisa utimikise kubo e-wallet noma nguphi lapho ungatifaka khona leto imali bese bakutshela ukuthi titawuphepha emva kwaloko tabe setiyabuya and before you know it bakubuta imininingwane yakho yasebhange leimfihlo ubanike willingly because ucabanga ukuthi ukhuluma nemuntu lo sebhange kanti ukhuluma nelohumusha ngako sithi nje asimane sixwayise siveni seMaswati sesibonile ukuthi awu bayalimala kakhulu lokunye futhi umuntu lengakusho ukuthi lesikubonako ema-victims lamanenga lolu hlobo lwalubucala bantu besifazane and ke bosongqondo bayaveta lokuthi bantu besifazane bayakholwa kalula uma ngabe batshelwa lutho they simply believe lokuthi lento ingiyo bangabe basayiquestiona even further so sibonile sivele bangema victims kakhulu labo bantu labo singacela bekunene ukuthi awu uma ngabe kukhona lokushayelako athi ushaya emaphoyiseni akacyber noma ushaya ebhange nakathi ushaya emaphoyiseni akacyber mtshele ukuthi sengiyakhona lapha emaphoyiseni la ukhona khona once washo njalo uyayikhatha le conversation because uyabona ukuthi hayi kuyabhetha noma umtshele sikulungile nangabe i-account yami compromise ngiyahamba ngebhange ngiyokulungisa khona ebhange lokho lenithi angikulungise emva kwalokuthi ayikhathi conversation uyathi usokuphelile ngikude ngeke aze akhone ukukruga imali yakho ngakho siyacela nje Maswati awube kunene singathuswa ngiloku sibathe account yethu khona la seyithikamedeke khona libhange futhi uma ngabe likushayele bekunene asisho ngalokubani lokusebali lokuthi lingeke lize likubute imininingwane yakho yekubhanga ngeke lize likubute yona noma ngayiphi indlela there is no way once nje lo muntu waqala ukubuta lemininingwane yakho leyimfihlo yathi kahle ukuthi awu lapha vele ngidila nescam mbamba
yeah ngalokuthi vele babetshele lamathabela ngodivet le asebenza every day and bengibuka nje la ku social media ama comments abantu I think umuntu omunye nje lokhathatha service amasathu ukuthi leti nombolo leti atuthola ngani because kunathiwa ama networks labade sebenzisa ngo MTN na Eswatini mobile and niyasebenzisana nawo lama mobile networks kuzama ukuthola ukuthi bobani kahle labenda lobugebengu and mhlambe ama investigations enu niyawenda mhlambe kukhona lokunye leningakhona mhlambe kukuveta isevent but ke I think lokukhathatha abantu ukuthi why kube likhuni ukuthola inombolo yemuntu atholakale leyo muntu lokulandzelela inombolo yemuntu ngekusebenzisa bona lama mobile networks
ngingasho nje dzadzewethu ukuthi sisebenzisa nebudlelwano lobuhle netinkampani letingema service providers etincingo kungaba nge-MTN kungaba nge-Eswatini mobile siyakhona kubambisana kanye nabo and bufakazi baloko ngiloko ukuthi kulamaviki lamabili lendlulile kunebantu syndicate lesikhonile kuyibuster sayibopha lengiyona beyikathe ichuba lo mkhubalo nje and futhi ke sekunalamanye ama syndicates la khona lengaphandle lesesikhona lekwa identifier lengakufihli lokuthi vele sisetinyaweni tabo bekunene batawuvela emphi kwemthetho noma kanjani.
So le tinombolo lama sim cards kuba tinombolo leti kanjani bathatha kuti batabo because yathi kuthi kune vele registration vela uyatshengisa ukuthi inombolo yazibani wakazibani lohlala kuphi kuba tinombolo labatithola kuphi leti.
Kuyahlukahlukana tsatsi wethu kwekucala kungaba tinombolo tebantu lasebashona ngekuthi bathathe advantage ukuthi asitibulali leto tinombolo esikhatsini esiningi. Kwesibili ungakhanza athi inombolo vele leta ukhomba umuntu lokhona uthole singumuntu lomdzala lo lemakhaya noma ufika kuye uvela ubone ukuthi akasicapable kusangenta bucala lophu njengalopho bese uyabona ukuthi kwendeka nasa kulandzisa naye asho ukuthi kwefika abantu bangicela lokhu nalokhu bagcina batsebenzisa babayisebenzisa leyo nombolo. Labanye ke vele siyakhona kubathola njengoba ngisho nje siyakhona kubambisana nato tinkampani letinge ama service providers etincingo evenda seSwatini. Kungasithatha kona sikhathi liqiniso kodwa sigcina sifikile kibo noma kanjani. Lokho ngithi service eMaswati angisinikete thologcina kwekuthi vele siyakhona kubambisana nale tinkampani leti provider tincingo na kanjani siyawubabamba. Kungasithatha sikhashanyana thathe wethu ngiyakuvuma lokho kodwa noma kanjani sigcina seti kwabo.
Ngicela seti kwabo. Labanye babo babetshele singathini ba more advanced ngebuchwephesha babati kakhulu tebuchwephesha ngaba vele mhlambe lokho kungaba yini indlela yokuthi banibuyisele emuva ngema investigations enu ngokuthi bati kakhulu tebuchwephesha kungiyeni indlela yokuthi mhlambe bangani setha back nanisenda umsebenzi wenu ngokuthi bona ba more advanced.
Kuliqiniso thathe wethu ukuthi vele labantu lesikhuluma ngabo ngilabatati kotebuchwepheshe kakhulu. And futhi uma badati nje letebuchwepheshe uma singabekisa i-age group yabo ngulabantu labesuka lapha kubo 18 weminyaka baye kubo 39 weminyaka ngetulu kwaloko asikavami ukuthola mhlambe bomsolo abalolo hlobo kodwa vele ngulabantu labaneminyaka lesesemncane uyabona si ngulabantu balesikhathi sanyalo labayatiko le technology labayisebenzako le technology. Kepha ke noma kunjalo thathe wethu ngithi mina sivese eMaswati asimesibinzi ngoba emaphoyisa equal to the challenge siyawa expose emaphoyisa ethu ekuthenini alithole lwati lolufanele kwekuthi indzaba leti nje tingasetshenziswa njani nangendlela lephuthumako so we are equal to the challenge.
So eMaswati nje babetshele sekalahlekelwe imali letinganani mhlawumbe nasibuka nje kucala umnyaka January 2024 kude kube nginyalo senganani nje imali lelahambile eMaswati.
Uma besingalinganisa thathe wethu noma kungele bethi inombolo leti iconze ngco kodwa singasho ukuthi $500,000 already ulahlekile ngalolu hlobo lolwebucala. Yes.
So kugcina nje babetshela ama tips mhlambe ukutiphephisa nekuprotector kulamathabela ngoti singenda kanjani singaMaswati.
Ngiyabonga thathe wethu njengoba sathi kwekuthi laba bekunene babadila kakhulu ngengqondo yomuntu babulala lengqondo yiyekele kucabanga. Uma ngabe uthola licingo lolukwesabisako ngalendlela lekuthi iaccount yakho kumbe seyithikametekile ngandlela thide lucishe lo licingo ukubuyisa ingqondo kancane ushayele abantu futhi labanye lobatiko ukhulume nabo ngalendzaba le ungakwendi kube indzaba yakho wedwana uthi ngoba iaccount yami indzaba yami ngedwana shayela lomunye lungakhona kusherisha naye lendzaba loyo lo ngakafakwa le pressure utawukhona kukuniketa umcondo ayi kahle bamba loyo kulokhuluma nabo kungendeka kube bantu labanje banalihlobo nalo kodwa walalela lendzaba yabo njengoba sathi uthi ilwimi lwabo lumnanzi vele walalela lendzaba yabo ukuthi batama kukusita wangacala ukucabanga kucala na kanjani utawugcina uyihambisile imali. Singako ngicela kusicwayisa sivese eMaswati bekunene imali tethethe emabhange etiphephile ibank app yethu futhi ngileyo lephephile ngeke futhi abantu basebhange bakushayele bakufune imininingwane leimfihlo yekubhanga kwakho futhi emaphoyisa kaSayibha bekunene angeke akushayele nje akufune leto tinto letakutshela ukuthi asushayelwa basebhange nangabe kunjalo bekunene gijima uye emaphoyiseni masinyane ubabikela ubantu usinikete leyo nombolo sitokhona kuyilandzelela na kanjani sibale sembi kwemthetho.
No ngiyavakala sibanga kakhulu Mr. Chela sasama ukuthi sive saMaswati siyava ukuthi sitiphephisa kanjani kuwo lama scams lawo ema mobile wallet scams asesekhefuna sibuya sibene tindzaba singisi.
The Board of directors, management and staff of the Eswatini Housing Board extend their heartfelt congratulations to Ms. Gciniwe Fakuthe on her appointment as the new Chief Executive Officer of the Municipal Council of Mbabane. We are confident that your leadership and vision will greatly contribute to the development and prosperity of our beloved city.
Ujala masoda mahle kunathi lesa.
Sabatandi ukuthi njengalokhu sivile sive sithi khulumeni.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Abaresearche bafunze. Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sende ukukhicita lokusemndeni.
Welcome back. This is the news at 7. Thank you for staying with us. His Majesty King Mswati III has mandated the Church of Jesus Christ in the country to ensure that King Somhlolo's vision is sustained for generations to come. His Majesty was speaking at the Somhlolo Festival of Praise Prayer Breakfast at Mountain View Hotel in Mbabane. His Majesty was represented by His Royal Highness Prince David.
Swati kings have meticulously upheld the legacy of King Somhlolo's vision since 1836, which was the year when the king had a divine visitation from God Almighty. Since then, the legacy has been passed on from one king to the next. When King Mswati II became king in 1840, after the death of King Somhlolo, he honored the vision and showed commitment to implement its meaning. In 1844, King Mswati II translated the vision into action when he sent two men, Majuba Mzebele and Mkonkoni Gunene, on a royal mission to fetch the scroll Umculu from South Africa. King Sobhuza II, who would later lead the country to independence, became king in 1921 and equally embraced the vision, just like His Majesty King Mswati III, who became king in 1986. His Majesty, who was represented by His Royal Highness Prince David, says the church in Eswatini must ensure that King Somhlolo's vision is sustained for generations to come. The king says, had it not been for the Lord, the torrent would have swept over the nation during challenging times. Therefore, Emaswati must be grateful to God.
This is a vision that the church in Eswatini must continue to run with and ensure is sustained for generations to come. We are grateful to Almighty God that we are gathered here in unity on this peaceful land, and our hearts resonate with gratitude for the blessings bestowed upon our beloved nation of Eswatini. Our strength lies in our unity and faith in God. We acknowledge that it is God who has helped and sustained us, and without Him, challenges and life storms would have swept us. The victories we celebrate have all been by the grace and wisdom that God has given us, and the legacy of our forefathers that we have upheld.
The Prime Minister, Russell Dlamini, was represented by the Minister of Home Affairs, Her Royal Highness Princess Lindiwe. The Prime Minister thanked their majesties for their unwavering commitment to King Somhlolo's vision.
Somhlolo wathi asithathe nango umculo. Indilinga sivile ngayo bayichaza ke nje uthi de Somhlolo asithathele umculo bekumele. Sibona ke makhosi solo ayawulandzela lo mculo njengoba sesifikile enkosini eMswati wesithathu. Siyayibona entatinkonzo, siyayibona ethandaza stadium eGood Friday. Siyayibona livela kangona livele lisekhululekile ngokuthandaza. Labanye amave nawubita igama la Jesu noma uphethe iBhayibheli lamanye amave neBhayibheli ayivunyelwa ukuthi ingene ngekhansi. So thinela kangwana sela lenhlanhla ukuthi siyakhona ukuthandaza uNkulunkulu ngaphandle kwekwesaba, ngaphandle kwekwendani. Noma ufuna kenza abeni uyathandaza khona kude nje nawe uMswati uyakhona nenkululeko yekuthandaza. Lokho ke kuvunywa ngilabo abaphethe lelive. Amen.
Brethren who attended the prayer breakfast were urged to embrace a word that was prophesied by Dr. Brian Jefferson Mosley in 1983 that Eswatini would be the pulpit of Africa. There was a wave of discussions on the true meaning of King Somhlolo's vision. This year's speakers included Reverend Dr. Absalom Muntu Dlamini, who made a presentation about the history of the vision, and Dr. Joy Ndwandwe, who spoke about the role played by the monarchy towards preserving it. There was a panel discussion on biblical insights on the choice between Umculu and Indilinga in Eswatini today. The word of God was shared by Dr. Samuel Dlamini, who led a covenantal prayer between King Jesus Christ and the nation. Dr. Dlamini said Jesus wants to reign in Eswatini, a country that he has chosen. He warned that the nation must pay attention and ensure that it walks in full obedience for the fulfillment of the prophecy that Eswatini will be the pulpit of Africa. Some speakers suggested that to comply with God's directive that the nation must read the word of God, Bibles must be distributed in schools, Tinkundla centers, within security forces and in government ministries. On the news, I'm Sandile Makanya, reporting with Zwele Masuku in Babane.
The Minister for Labour and Social Security, Honourable Philip Telezi, has urged workers not to resort to violence whenever there are labour disputes with their employers. The Minister was speaking at Mhlume constituency during a developmental meeting with residents at Mhlume Sports Ground.
Mhlume Constituency Council, under the leadership of Honourable Sfiso Makakula, alongside Mhlume residents, converged at Mhlume Sports Ground in a developmental meeting where the Regional Development Fund, amongst other initiatives introduced by government for purposes of poverty alleviation in Eswatini, were unpacked. The meeting was also attended by the Minister for Labour and Social Security, Honourable Philip Telezi.
Scholarships lamanengi lese guaranteed ngawona sinika abafundi ngilawa lanika abantu emakhona laba ko team nje siyayisetamela ukuthi 100% naba applyile ba qualify bayawathola because uyathi lo sinaka trainekile lo mfundi nakaphuma utawukhona ukudephilisa angikaqashwa ngomuntu siyaphusata nje ukuthi nani nilatshane sengwenyama singabuki sonke ukuqashwa asibuke nakokudisebenza ukuze sikhona ukuphila. Nathi ke lesewutholile umusa saba semsebenzini sine sithunywe ukuthanyela itiko lanto kusebenzini nenhlola kahle yanto siyathi ukuthi nakusetshenzwa akuhlali kumnanzi wonke malanga kodwa nje ke kuyayibe sesekubabuhlungu na utawuthi nakunge nakuvumelana ukhanza sebonakele lokhu lesibuke ukuthi sitawuphila ngako sonke so ukhanza sekushele lesicashe lokusebenza sekushele imishini lesisebenza ngayo sithi njamane sikwekude asikukhuthati.
Mhlume constituency stands to benefit from the Lumahasha Namasha water project.
Mhlume inkundla ukuthinzeka emaphiveni ngila vele endibe kude mbamba lamandi kanzi labantu bacela nibayona lomfula bese bafile etingwenya lokana loka bathi bayeme walk emandi lapha emfuleni badlwe etingwenya but nyalo sesijabule kakhulu njengale project ukuthi seyitawusitha lesive lesilapha emaphiveni.
In the 2024-2025 fiscal year, each constituency has been allocated 2.8 million emalangeni under the Regional Development Fund. For Eswatini TV News, I am LinkedIn Gule with Begi Mazibuko, Mhlume.
The Minister for Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Honorable Jane Mkhonta, visited the Kapunga area to explore caves used during wars long ago. The ministry is visiting these caves to diversify the tourism sector in Eswatini and showcase what the country has to offer to visitors. This initiative also aims to encourage visitors to stay longer in Eswatini. The outgoing United Kingdom ambassador to Eswatini, Simon Boyden, stated that his government has contributed $350 billion to global initiatives from which Eswatini has benefited through United Nations agencies. Boyden highlighted that one of his proudest moments was the launch of a mental health booklet. Boyden emphasized that he participated in projects that will assist organizations in reaching out more effectively to the youth, particularly concerning skills development and empowerment initiatives with organizations like Gwaka Invota.
The UK has just recently extended its contribution, not specifically to Eswatini, but to the Global Environment Facility to $350 million. So we've worked with Gwaka Invota to help establish a centre in the Kwaliseni area so that they can reach other populations with their work with adolescents, adolescent boys and young men, both to equip them with skills, life skills, but also to address both their own sexual health and hygiene, but also the critical issue of gender-based violence. And that's been a running theme really for the 3 years that I've been here. It really is a scourge on society, not just in Eswatini, but it is a significant problem in Eswatini, as it is in many other places. And so we've been working with a number of different organisations that have operated in that space. And then perhaps the last one I would want to mention is our work, again with All Out Africa, but on not on the youth training, but actually with the installation of solar panels and battery storage in some of their neighbourhood care points, which are used for early years childcare and education, as well as at the Savannah Research Centre in Umbuluzi, which obviously is good from a conservation and biodiversity point of view, but also enables the researchers who come from all over the world to carry out their work there.
The Royal Eswatini National Airways Corporation has begun outlining the requirements for adding destinations within the Southern African Development Community with Eswatini Air. Gatsini Wold Michael, a representative of RENAC CEO, stated that the plan aims to connect the East African tourist circuit with Southern Africa. He mentioned that they are currently evaluating various cab options and timelines. He made these remarks while discussing the company's intentions to expand beyond its current 4 destinations.
We also believe we can bring value to the Eswatini economy if we connect the East African tourist circuit to the Southern African tourist circuit. Because some of these tourists see Africa as one whole country, and they want to be everywhere, and they want to see every part of it. So when they travel to those destinations, if they find easy connectivity, they will come to see. So we will focus on that. We will also enable business to move around easily, because it is, in our interest to improve the investment desirability of Eswatini. We want more people to come here. We want more people to invest in Eswatini, because a roaring economy gives us more passengers, more goods to carry on our cargoes operations. So we will facilitate those kinds of links and connectivity. But what's important, and I think what everybody should notice, route development is not an easy exercise. It's a very, very expensive exercise. Routes sometimes take up to 5 years to mature and break even and generate profit. And those who stay in the game are the only ones who will eventually reap the benefit.
The Mbiveni Biggest Braai was a tremendous success, with projections indicating higher than usual attendance. The chairman of the Philani Maswati Charity Organization, Lutfo Dlamini, said the funds collected will fully support the completion of Manchonga Elderly Home, which requires 7 million emalangeni.
The recently concluded Mbiveni Biggest Braai charity event has been hailed as a huge success. Lutfo Dlamini, the chairman of the Philani Maswati Charity Organization, expressed gratitude for the overwhelming response from attendees.
Umsebenzi uhambe kahle kude lesive kulimele kushayweni sekugicika imoto uNkulunkulu uchubekile nje wasibusisa.
Dlamini says this year's edition had a lot of activities. He says that the fact that the event was officially opened by a representative of the Indlovukazi means a lot to the charity event. Dlamini stated that the funds collected will play a crucial role in completing the Manchonga Elderly Home, which requires 7 million emalangeni for its final stages. Wesley Dlamini, the deputy mayor of Manzini, affirmed the city's commitment to supporting such charitable endeavors.
From what we've actually witnessed on the day, on the 2 days, labekona, interest the event can only grow from now.
He says that events like Mbiveni Biggest Braai are not just about entertainment, they are about making a tangible difference in the lives of Emaswati. Dlamini says they will continue to extend their full support to initiatives that benefit the welfare of Emaswati. The Philani Maswati Charity Organization plans to build on this success in future initiatives, aiming to further enhance their capacity to serve vulnerable elderly people in Eswatini. Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni, Junior Atakwa, Manzini.
The Eswatini Cotton Board has increased the cost of a single ton of cotton by 25% this year. The Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Daniel Khumalo, says this is their way of ensuring that farming of cotton continues to grow in the country.
The cotton industry has about 1,200 farmers, and the Chief Executive Officer of Eswatini Cotton Board, Dr. Daniel Khumalo, says they are still open to have more farmers. He says as a result, they have increased the money they use to buy a ton of cotton from farmers.
One of the factors that we have observed so far is that our farmers were not very happy with the prices we were offering in the past. And so one of the strategies to encourage cotton farmers to come back to cotton production, which the current board has executed, is that we want to increase the cotton prices from where they were in the previous years to better cotton prices. With the increase in the cost of production, we found that most of the farmers are not very happy, and as a result, they are even withdrawing from the cotton industry. So this year, in an effort to try and mitigate that, we have already increased the cotton price from 6,500 per ton, which was a price for last year, to 7,500 this year.
He has also highlighted other initiatives they are doing to ensure the cotton industry continues to grow.
We have introduced a number of technologies which makes working in the field to be simpler. That's the introduction of the GMO, the introduction of Roundup Ready cotton, the introduction of herbicide ready cotton. We are also proud of ourselves in the way we have managed the farmers in terms of paying them in time. Where this recently we have just bought a combine harvester, which is an incentive to all those who want to embark on cotton production in the near future.
According to the Chief Executive Officer, Eswatini Cotton Board exports about 12 to 16 million emalangeni every season, depending on the total production. Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
For international news, U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Shiatlu faced calls to resign from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle on Monday as she testified about the agency's failure to prevent the assassination attempt against Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump.
9 days after the assassination attempt that shook the nation,
There are few answers on how the shooter got so close to Trump.
He's on the roof!
The head of the United States Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, answering lawmakers' questions about the shooting for the first time, was blunt.
We failed.
Cheadle said a full report on the agency's failure to protect the former president would be released within 90 days. Lawmakers said that was unacceptable during an election season that has already proved to be contentious. Some called on her to resign.
The Secret Service has a zero-fail mission, but it failed on July 13th and in the days leading up to the rally. The Secret Service has thousands of employees and a significant budget, but it has now become the face of incompetence.
Cheadle told lawmakers Trump's Secret Service detail was aware of a suspicious person before the former president spoke at the rally.
If the detail had been passed information that there was a threat, the detail would never have brought the former president out onto stage.
One analyst told VOA the early warnings about the shooter raised serious questions.
Most definitely there was a failure here to neutralize the threat when it was immediately observed. And quite frankly, it would have been illegitimate to shoot that young man once he was on the roof. It would have been a legitimate shooting, a legal shooting. So I don't know why there was hesitation.
Congressional Democrats called for changes to gun laws in the United States, saying it was unfortunate that former President Trump is now one of many victims of gun violence.
We almost lost a presidential candidate the other day. A 20-year-old had access to his father's AR-15 and got on top of a roof within 500 yards or feet of the podium. And I'm asking you, did the availability of that AR-15, which is replicated all across America, make your job harder or easier? And you're not willing to answer that question?
The Federal Bureau of Investigation has still not determined a motive for the actions of Thomas Matthew Crooks, the suspected shooter.
Benjamin Netanyahu is in Washington this week with a scheduled speech to Congress and meeting at the White House. The Israeli Prime Minister is landing in the middle of U.S. political turmoil following President Joe Biden's decision on Sunday to withdraw from the presidential race, which could add another layer of uncertainty to U.S.-Israel relations at a crucial moment in the Gaza war. Their discretion is advised.
Israeli strikes in eastern Khan Yunis killed dozens of people Monday. Hundreds more fled after evacuation orders. This is the scene that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu left to travel to another battlefield, this one political, as the U.S. presidential campaign is upended following President Joe Biden's decision not to run for a second term.
And I will tell my friends on both sides of the aisle that regardless who the American people choose as their next president, Israel remains America's indispensable and strong ally in the Middle East.
That is what the Israeli leader says publicly. But analysts say in the potential race for the White House between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, Netanyahu would prefer a Republican.
The Republicans are more supportive of Israel's security agenda, and that would be true whoever was in power in Israel. But the second thing is they're more forgiving of Israel's right-wing government and its policies towards the Palestinians.
Netanyahu has reportedly requested a meeting with former President Trump, who launched significant pro-Israel policies during his term. Trump brokered the Abraham Accords that normalize Israel's diplomatic ties with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. He moved the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to contested Jerusalem and recognized Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights.
With Kamala, he's probably going to get someone who will remain pretty much mainstream when it comes to supporting the U.S.-Israeli relationship, but I think far tougher, certainly rhetorically and Israeli settlement activity, and much more sympathetic to Palestinian suffering and Palestinian rights.
Ultimately, Netanyahu's main goal in Washington is to prepare the groundwork for the next American administration. And with the Israeli Knesset nearing a 3-month recess, advancing his own goals in his fragile coalition.
There may be a political timing that will enable Netanyahu to make a move once the Knesset is in recess without having that lead to immediate coalition breakdown, because that could not be done until the Knesset comes back to operation.
During that time, Netanyahu could potentially go against far-right factions in his coalition and reach a ceasefire deal with Hamas after nearly 9 months of war. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said last week such a deal is within reach.
I believe we're inside the 10-yard line and driving toward the goal line and getting an agreement that would produce a ceasefire, get the hostages home, and put us on a better track to trying to build lasting peace and stability.
However, most analysts are skeptical the ceasefire deal will extend beyond phase 1, a 6-week pause in fighting in exchange for some of the hostages held by Hamas.
President Joe Biden's Sunday decision to step out of the presidential race sent shockwaves through the White House and beyond, leaving uncertainty about the Democratic nomination in its wake.
What happens now in American politics after President Joe Biden's stunning Sunday withdrawal from the presidential race? By Monday morning, it seemed everyone had a theory. But first, some reflections on the past from the person now taking center stage. On Monday, Biden's presidential pick, Vice President Kamala Harris, made her first post-announcement appearance, hosting college athletes at a White House event. She said Biden, who is recovering from COVID-19 at his Delaware home and has not been seen publicly since last week, is recovering fast.
Joe Biden's legacy of accomplishment over the past 3 years is unmatched in modern history. In one term, he has already, yes, you may clap. In one term, he has already surpassed the legacy of most presidents who have served 2 terms in office.
But Biden's Republican critics question whether he should remain president.
If everyone acknowledges it, running a campaign.
Supporters are more upbeat, with top Democrats lining up behind Harris.
I have every confidence that she could beat Donald Trump, and I'm very excited about how quickly people are coming together to support her candidacy.
So what happens now? First, a disclaimer.
Research has found that political pundits are worse at predicting political outcomes than dart-throwing monkeys are. So I would take anything anybody like me says with several grains of salt.
Historians dismiss the idea that this stunning turn of events could cause instability.
I think the White House is a much larger machine than the president himself. And in effect, he is going to be a lame duck president. We've had lame duck presidents in the past, and that's not really an issue or not a terrible danger.
And some analysts say that, in a way, this makes the whole election simpler.
There'll be a division of responsibilities. He'll be the president. Kamala Harris will be the candidate. And this makes it easier for both of them in a way, because each has a distinct job.
Which brings us to the biggest question of all, the one only American voters can answer in November. Who gets to live here for the next 4 years?
Russian courts convicted 2 American journalists on Friday. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan and Radio Free Europe Radio Liberty editor Alsu Kumasheva, press freedom advocates, say both are wrongfully detained.
In a closed-door trial Friday, Alsu Kumasheva received a 6.5-year sentence for spreading what the Kremlin says is false information about the Russian army. The verdict appears linked to a book Kumasheva helped edit about Russians opposed to the war in Ukraine. It is unclear if other charges are still pending against the journalist for VOA's sister network, Radio Free Europe Radio Liberty. RFERL President Stephen Capus called the trial a, quote, mockery of justice. Media groups are condemning Russia's actions.
But this just shows again how these trials against these 2 American journalists, this one a Russian-American journalist in Russia, are obviously completely manipulated by Russian authorities.
Kumasheva's verdict came the same day Russia convicted Evan Gershkovich. The Wall Street Journal reporter was sentenced to 16 years in prison on espionage charges that he denies. The US is demanding both Americans be released.
We remain focused on the case of Alsu Kumasheva. She's a dedicated journalist who is being targeted by Russian authorities for her uncompromising commitment to speaking the truth and her principled reporting.
The convictions mark a rapid decline in media freedoms in Russia. The country ranks near the bottom of the World Press Freedom Index. And Moscow is detaining at least 22 journalists, more than half of whom are foreign nationals, says the Committee to Protect Journalists. RFERL External Affairs Chief Diane Zeleny says Kurmasheva's unjust detention and the risks for its journalists are a daily concern.
It is the new normal. It's sad to say. This is sort of the state of the world right now. Journalists are not safe anymore in many places, and the ways to help them are minimal, actually, and they are being targeted by authoritarian governments.
Kurmasheva's family in Prague says her detention hits at a personal level.
It would be one thing if she was only away from me for so long, but to know that she's in an unsafe place and that she's in danger and she's not comfortable, that's something that really makes me sad.
The Russian embassy did not respond to VOA's requests for comment. But in the case of Gershkovich, the Kremlin has indicated it would be open to a prisoner swap.
For our sports news, the Vice President of the Eswatini Basketball Association, Phumelele Motha, says as an association they are happy with the level shown by the school. Motha says the high level witnessed during the school's national cup championships will elevate the sport at all levels. Thank you for staying with us. Let's go for an ad break. Start to begin with our program after the break. Let's leave you with the weather.
kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi
aba-researche bafunze.
being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula
nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokhu kusembili.
Renewal of TV licenses for 2024 is now open. Here is a quick reminder. A viewer's TV license costs 180 emalangeni per device. Other accessories such as decoders and set-top box cost 50 emalangeni per device. For traders and repairers, TV license costs 300 emalangeni per business area. And now, to pay your TV license, use these following methods. You can use MTN Mobile Money with the number 76222000 or dial *007 *3 *7#, or you can use Eswatini Imali. You can pay our TV license at any post office in the country. Another option is you can use any NetBank branch using our TV license account number 1199004337. Don't forget, when paying for your viewer's TV license, reference with your PIN at all times. And when paying for a retailer TV license, reference with your TIN at all times. For more information, call us on 7802-4543 or 34050163 or 34020879. And you can send us a WhatsApp message on 762222000.
Welcome back to the program. It has been 8 months since the People's Parliament at Sibaya and exactly 165 days since His Majesty's speech from the throne. Two momentous events that have charted a significant course for the development of Eswatini. Now, the media plays a crucial role in holding policymakers accountable, informing you, the public, as well as fostering transparent discourse. We ensure that government actions align with public interests and promises. It is for this reason that in this particular segment of our show, we hit the King's closing remarks from Sibaya, which emphasized the need to follow up on whether the issues that were raised by the people at the People's Parliament are really being addressed. While doing so, we also want to appreciate and acknowledge the good work that has been done so far, maintaining, of course, a balanced view as we scrutinize progress and advocate for continued improvement. Let's delve now into an in-depth analysis of Eswatini's trajectory since the significant directive issued by His Majesty King Mswati III. This was during the Sibaya in November 2023, as well as the subsequent launch of the Nkwe initiative by Prime Minister Russell Dlamini. Additionally, we want to reflect on the progress made since His Majesty's impactful speech from the throne on February 9, 2024. A speech, by the way, that aligned Eswatini's development paths with global frameworks such as Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement. Joining us to unpack all of this development is our esteemed economist, Sanele Sibia. Really lovely to have you on the show, Sanele. Very good morning to you. Appreciate you providing us your time. You could be doing a lot, but you chose to be with us. Let's look at the progress since the Nkwe Directive, a very, very important command that has been heeded and appreciated by the people. Maybe for a viewer that has not been following keenly all these developments, you could shed some light on the core objectives and the urgency it embodies for Eswatini's socio-economic development.
Good morning, Mr. Nimalo, and good morning to the viewers. Thank you for having me on the show. So when we analyzed and we looked at the speech from the throne, I think I did at some point really I referred to it as directive from the throne because, like you said, it did contain it did touch on all the issues that we needed to deal with as a country. So one of the matters that were there, one could say that we need to get to 5% level of growth as a country. So there was the issue of development, and then there was the issue of sustainable development and inclusive growth in the country, where we leave no one behind. I think the King has always been saying and talking around those lines that we need to make sure that in our development agenda, we leave nobody behind as a country. And then there was the issue of service delivery. What I actually liked on that objective to make sure that government can deliver services to the population efficiently and expediently. So I think that was a very good directive from the throne, which we do hope is going to get implemented. And then there was also the issue of national unity. But one thing that I also liked that was striking for me was, if you remember His Majesty's speech, it had an entire section on the youth and an entire section on unemployment. So that one I really did like, and I'd hoped that would also trickle into the budget and quite other policies, but unfortunately that was not to be. And then we did see a lot of initiatives around climate, making sure that we do invest in early warning systems so that we don't fall prey to natural disasters as they come. And there was another section, two sections as it were, that spoke to the issue of health. His Majesty did lament the state of our health system, and he did give a directive to get our health systems back in place, lest we will fall prey to we're going to start seeing a reneging in terms of the objectives that we had attained as a country. We had actually attained 95 in terms of the fight against HIV, and His Majesty did caution that if we don't get our health system back in place, we might start regressing on those objectives. And then last, there was an entire objective around corruption, Mr. Nimando. And I think His Majesty refers to it as a cancer and a scourge So those were the five, the major objectives that one could pick when analyzing the speech from the throne. And yes, I did refer to it as a directive from the throne, and it really does lay out national priorities in a way that we ought to be implementing as a country. Maybe let me leave it there for now, Mr. Newman.
Sanele, someone that follows developments around the country, current affairs keenly, will be, remiss not to admit that there's been quite some really great work that has been done so far. If you read, everyday newspapers, you watch the news, you just really assess, even just conducting an eye study, what is being done outside. You really can see that, ukhona longwe, people are really, really running right now, and there is that call for urgent development. What are some of the most significant strides that we've seen since the launch of the initiative? And maybe are there particular sectors where this directive has notably accelerated progress?
Thank you, Mr. Ngumado. I think we, like you are rightly putting it, there are quite a number of areas where we are seeing the initiative actually take place and move very fast. I mean, for example, if you look at the work that we've done in terms of the borders, just a few weeks ago, couple of months ago, we saw, the launch of a digital ERS, we saw the launch of a time release survey. So those are the issues that we need to look into in terms of making our borders accessible and being able to move. So, I mean, we are seeing the Revenue Authority really moving and really heeding to the speech from the throne, in the sense that also, I mean, His Majesty did caution to say, let us have what we call, let's make sure that tax compliance is relatively easy and it's something that can be attained as a country. So we've seen that happen within the fiscal space in terms of revenue mobilization, internal revenue mobilization. And then also we've seen other strides such as we remember, there is an FDI strategy, an investor strategy. So when one looks at that and the linkages that it hopes to build, that is also going to speak to the issue of, emboldening our SMEs and also ensuring that we can invest in diversity. Maswati can invest in their diversity to take advantage of opportunities that are there. And I mean, we're also seeing the infrastructure projects moving. So again, that's another positive that we are seeing coming out of the speech from the throne. So we're seeing all of those initiatives moving. And I mean, we're also seeing relatively new initiatives coming in terms of, we've seen quite a number of new businesses being launched, new infrastructure being launched. So that to me speaks of a government that is willing to take lead and actually of a king who's availed himself to come out and really and be there and open quite a number of these initiatives, so that the nation should take as just as a notion or as an indicator to say that Eswatini is open for business and Eswatini is ready to move for business. I mean, we've also seen other initiatives when His Majesty returned. I mean, it's rare. He hasn't gone out to seek for investors this time around and came back empty-handed. We've seen quite a couple of investments coming up in the country. So at least on that front, one can say we have moved in certain areas, and we cannot take away from the fact that there are some gains that are being made, and the country is really moving forward.
And look, we're only 8 months since the People's Parliament and only 165 days since the speech from the throne. One of the objectives you highlighted, you hinge on economic growth and development. And we did hear a strong emphasis through His Majesty's speech from the throne on sustainable and inclusive economic growth. How has this been reflected in the national policies and actions we've seen in the past 165 days?
As a country, like I said, we need to strive for sustainable and inclusive growth, growth that is not going to harm our environment and growth that is not going to leave anybody behind. So in terms of the the very impacts that one would hope to see, as it were. Maybe to caution Mr. Ngumalo that, when you analyze a policy and you look at a policy, there is what is going to be short-term things that you can do right now and be able to attain right now, and then there are things that are going to be long-term. For example, I made no mention right now of the investor strategy and roadmap. So that one, you will see that it actually does strive towards sustainable growth and sustainable development. We've also seen with with the budget speech, the allocations that had been put to actually try and support locals at that local level. That would be the Youth Fund, the Rural Development Fund, and quite a number of these initiatives that government has. They've been availed, and I think, given knowledge of what I know is happening on the ground, I do know that the government, this current government, is actually prioritizing the RDF to make sure that we can get those resources to even to every listener from all walks of life. So we are seeing all of those initiatives come into play. Also within the text spectrum, we have also seen how we're trying to make sure that the text system is actually quite easy to understand by every listener at the end, can be implemented, and everyone can comply. So that would limit issues where in the future people are going to come back and say we are not. We've had this rhetoric where people will say ERS is closing them down, and in essence, ERS is simply saying you ought to have paid so much and you never paid. So that's going to reduce those issues. So we are seeing quite a lot of gains in terms of the sustainable growth and development, Mr. Nimalo. And we are hoping that as the economy opens up even further, we are going to see more of the growth,
And what I appreciate is that you are also able to point to specific economic projects as well as policy shifts that align with the priorities that are set out in the speech. I want us to get into global framework alignment, because this is also very, very important. You are highlighting, issues around the king going out and seeking foreign direct investment and coming back home not empty-handed, and that is very important in itself. But the alignment of the speech with global frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement was widely noted, and I do remember the United Nations just a week later published an article just, highlighting those notables as well. How has this alignment been operationalized within our national development strategy?
I think if you look back into, the operationalization of the Sibaya submissions into what one would believe is this current government's plan of action, because we haven't seen any except for the operationalization of that framework of the Sibaya contributions. So when you look at that in itself, when you take the contributions that people made at Sibaya holistically, you will see that there is nothing you can't tie down to the sustainable development goal agenda. When you talk of unemployment, you talk of health, you talk of access to education, and you talk of the environment, you talk of gender equality, quite a number of things. The speech from the throne really did make mention of the fact, and it was actually a paragraph there, I think that I saw that it was an entire section talking to ending the scourge of gender-based violence in Eswatini. So when you look at all of those directives, also ensuring that we get our health system back in place. So there is quite a number of movements on all fronts to make sure that we are able to meet those directives from the speech from the throne. But like I said, some things, when you plan a policy, there is what we call a low-hanging fruit, something you can do right now and be able to attain. And then you're going to have medium term, so there will be more of your 3-year strategic objectives, and then you're going to have long term. That is what one would say would be the 5-year term in terms of the purview of the contract of government in Eswatini. So we are looking at all of those things coming together, and the direct mentioning of climate change and adaptation, early warning systems. And what we've seen being presented on the ground in terms of, the budget, in terms of our energy resilience, we have seen the finance minister detailing to the nation that, we are going to be sourcing, I think it's 120 megawatts through solar, and then there's going to be biomass fuel, So all of those things bode well for a greener Eswatini, when we are saying we're greening Eswatini. So it is all those initiatives that one would then see on the ground and then be able to link to the speech from the throne and, those movements. And we've also seen how government has tirelessly tried to ensure that Eswatini would actually get back into school. So that's what we would call a policy in action. If you do recollect, when schools opened, government did they extended a hand to parents who are struggling to pay the infamous deposits and said, no, if you can't pay the deposit, come register with us. We're going to do an assessment. And if we really deem that you cannot pay the deposit, then we are actually going to assist you on that as well. So now that's a government that says, I want to achieve universal primary education. I want to achieve universal education. I am trying to address all those bottlenecks, and that has actually taken Eswatini back into school. And I even remember at some point the Deputy Prime Minister saying she's going to drive around, and if she finds children of school-going age not going to school, then parents will have to answer. But let me leave it there for now, Mr. Nimalo. Yeah, there is quite a number of movement and traction that we are seeing on the ground to try to make Eswatini green and to try to link and make sure that Eswatini makes progress in terms of the sustainable development goals.
Perhaps on that very same leaf, just looking into, what we are doing from an international partnership front, what does this mean for Eswatini's standing on the international stage? And I think most importantly, its opportunities for partnerships and funding. I mean, we've seen the kind of funding we've secured, particularly through the Ministry of Finance in the last 2.5 months. And me and you have had a few conversations just outside regarding what that means for Eswatini.
So when we look into that, when you talk of bilateral and multilateral funding, Mr. Ngumalo, they usually comes with quite a number of, it's what we call the requirements. I mean, for one to be able to access IMF money, you must have met 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 criteria. And for one to access World Bank money, there must be 1, 2, 3, 5 criteria that must be met. And for one to access AFDB money, there has to be certain criteria. And when you analyze our multilateral and bilateral partners, we seem to align with more green more green partners, with your World Bank and quite a number of these organizations that are pushing for, vigorous moves towards eliminating climate change, making sure that we attain a 2-degree reduction by 2050. So all of those, the efforts that we are doing and our alignment as a country to that does allow us to attract that funding and be able to be viewed as a country that is actually looking forward to move in terms of the global development agenda. So we are part of the global development agenda. We are not seen as divergent. And then also, in terms of our human rights record, one would say, for me, if you look at the fact that we're able to get AGOA back, that means, yes, we are doing something right. We might not necessarily be where we ought to be, but the fact that we were able to get AGOA back, that means we met quite a lot of the requirements therein, and we were then deemed fit to become part of AGOA. So that means we are doing something right as a country, and we are moving forward one way or the other, Mr. Numa.
Another topic that prevailed during the discussions, particularly at the People's Parliament, outside of just, eradicating poverty, was the issue around corruption. And of course, that hinges around governance, justice, and people's rights, really. Accountable governance and justice being the key themes in the speech from the throne. Have you seen any progress there, or any work being done regarding that front?
I would say, for me, Mr. Numalo, we talk of transparency and accountability. We've seen the government do a lot of public relations. I mean, we've never seen this level of transparency in this country. Going backwards, we would never have a finance minister come and detail to us where certain monies went, where certain things went. We are getting 6 billion, where is it going to go? So we have seen that kind of openness from government in terms of saying whatever it is that we are doing, we are here, we are willing to engage. We've seen that through all departments. We've seen that, through the DPM's office, Ministry of Agriculture, all the departments and different ministries are actually open, and the public gets to know more, and the public gets to speak around such issues without any consequence. So that in itself, for me, bodes well in terms of a transparent government. But then the issue of corruption in itself, I think that is where we are actually lagging as a country, because I'll make an example of the health sector, for example. We know that people ate so much billions and they never delivered drugs. A problem that started right about March, and then now we are talking of 8 months into this government, and still we are doing inquiries, looking at different initiatives. Why Eswatini don't have the drugs in store? So I think what we need to do as a country is to attack the problem directly. And for us to be able to attack the problem directly, we need to understand that our corruption is somehow embedded within what one would call elite capture, in terms of the fact that those who are more corrupt are the ones who have so much control over quite a number of state apparatus and over quite a number of private apparatus therein. So it's just that it becomes relatively difficult to prosecute such a person, which is when you look at the fact that our anti-corruption laws came into being quite a long time ago, but we are yet to see a person being prosecuted on the strength of that. So for me, I think if we were to move forward as a country, we need to deal with the problem of corruption, because the monies that we lose in corruption is quite a lot of money. We've lost schools to corruption. We could have built entire schools. We could have funded quite a number of our health initiatives. We could have built roads. We could have improved a lot of the infrastructure. We could have put in place a thriving IT infrastructure. So when I say that, I mean there is opportunity cost. If the money is lost to corruption, there are things that we then tend not to be able to execute as a country, that we tend not to gain as a country. And it has gotten so pervasive that right now, when you look at the corruption, it is starting to take lives of Eswatini, and it seems we are not moving fast enough to address the problem, even if we don't want to prosecute for the corrupt ones. But at least let's get drugs back into public facilities. That would be the first step. And then second step, we then start thinking around how do we remove the corruption, because when there's corruption around as well, it does take away equality of opportunity, and then that's going to also eat into the issues of sustainable growth and development and economic growth, because what then happens becomes the fact that for you to get to a certain resource, you need to be well connected. So what we term that in economics as adverse selection. That means even the not so bright of the elite will get access to resources, where the ones, the majority of Eswatini, you could have the brightest and not getting access to those resources. And that, in a way, cripples our development trajectory, because we don't have the brightest and the best, and we don't reward talent, but we just reward connection. So we really do need to think around this issue of corruption as a country. It is getting bad, and it has started to take lives. It started by taking schools, taking, service delivery, taking quite a number of issues, but now it's starting to take life, and we're still not doing anything about it. So for me, that would be my main worry in terms of implementation of the directive from the throne. I don't think government is doing enough on that. We just allow people to play around with the courts and delay the process. And those are the elite people who can afford courts and people who can afford to pay lawyers. Lawyers are expensive, Mr. Nimaro. I can't keep a lawyer on retainer for more than 2 weeks personally.
Certainly. Yeah, I'm stronging, with like a very big, strong nod in agreement with everything you're saying regarding corruption. But what has been comforting, at least giving us a bit of optimism, was, I think, was last week, Thursday or Friday, when we saw part of, the news that came out, a conversation between one of our journalists with the Minister for Health, Mr. Matsebula, promised us that people are going to be arrested very, very soon regarding what we saw happening in the health sector. I'm afraid we've run out of time. I'm really afraid we've run out of time, but let me thank you, Mr. Sbia, and thank the viewer at home for tuning into the program. A lot of work to be done, but most importantly, you appreciate the many work that has been done so far in attaining the development that Eswatini ought to achieve in eradicating all the problems that currently confront the kingdom. Let's go for a net break. We wrap up the show in a few seconds.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m, where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Sashal and Sim, I've come to the end of our program. Lomuhla, thank you for tuning in. It's a Tuesday, beautiful morning. So, you'll have a lovely day. And I'll see you tomorrow.